Okay, so 1.5 deals with exchange rates. It's kind of different than the 1.4 and before that. And I think they just kind of threw it in this chapter. But if you've ever gone to a foreign country, sometimes you have to buy, right, their currency that's there. All right. So before you'd go on your trip, you would go to the bank or to a place that sells currency, because there are places that actually, specialize in currency, and you can buy their currency. All right. If you're buying more common stuff like American, the banks kind of hold on to American. They have money that's there. But if it's a different currency, euros, they kind of hold on to some, but not a lot. But if you're going to a country where it's not used a lot, like we don't tend to travel to those countries a lot, the bank will request that you come and talk to them and they'll order stuff in. So for example, when my brother went to Dubai, right, he actually ended up, and he went to Singapore. And so he had to go to the bank and request their currency, and it took a couple weeks for it to come in because he wanted to make sure that he had some on him and that sort of thing. But most credit cards now will be accepted year around the world. So a lot of people just shop with their credit cards now. And the credit card company just does the exchange rates. So these exchange rates, they charge you money. Well, what an exchange rate is our money is worth different amounts to other countries. Okay, so the one that we get compared to all the time is the American dollar, right? The American dollar is usually always worth more than our dollar. Okay, so right now, well, if you look at this chart, right, where is the United States? Oh, they're at the very last. When this textbook was published, this is everything that's in this chart talks about $1 Canadian. So $1 Canadian, if we have $1 Canadian, this is how much it would cost us for an American dollar. So it would cost us $1.04 on this chart. This was published. Just move on to another question. I'm not answering your question. Sorry. This was published when Canada and the United States exchange rates were really close together, right? Really close together. And so okay, so currently our Canadian dollar, one United States dollar equals 130 or $1.32 Canadian. That means for every dollar that we want to buy of American money, it'll cost us $1.32 Canadian. Okay, so we're at our Canadian dollar is worth. So if you take $1 and subtract 32 cents, right? Oh, $1 subtract 32 cents. Our dollar is worth 68 cents right now to an American. So that is why they like to come to Canada, because every one of their dollars is worth $1.32, right? And we have to pay $1.32 to get one of theirs. So our cash is only worth 68 cents. All right, so it's going to cost you pretty much for every $3, it's going to cost you $4. All right, that's kind of the exchange rate. Now, you will notice on this chart that there are two columns, right? There is a bank buying rate and there's a bank selling rate. Everything is described in the context of the bank. It is never in context of you. It is the bank selling you money and the bank buying money back from you. So when you are done your vacation and you have some money left over, you can go back to the bank and exchange it back into Canadian money, right? The bank is buying from you and you are buying from the bank, okay? Or the bank is selling and the bank is buying. And you will know that the bank selling rate, look at this. Let's look at the euro. When you buy it from them, so they're selling it to you, it costs you $1.64 a dollar. So every dollar that you want of their money, of a euro, costs you $1.64. But you didn't use up all your euros. You go back to the bank. How much is the bank going to give you for that €1 that you paid $1.64 for? They're only going to pay you now $1.58. You see how where they're making money? That's how the bank makes money. They won't give you the same amount back just because you bought it, right? You could go in the morning, buy a bunch of euros, and then find out, oh, I have to cancel my trip. You take it back to the bank in the afternoon, they give you $1.58. You lost money. All right? So let's set up a question. This is what we are going to do. So let's flip over. So you have to make sure that you know what column you are buying from. So it's always in the perspective of the bank. So keep that to your side. So it says, on one specific date, the selling rate for a Danish krone compared to the Canadian dollar is 0.221778. So this is, all right? So every single time it tells you what it is worth in a Canadian dollar. So this chart is all Canadian cash. This is all Canadian money. So when we set up the proportion, the country that you are looking at is always on the top left. In this case, it's 1 krone. So the foreign country is always up on top. And they are always one of them on the very top, every single time. The bottom is always going to be Canada, and it is what their money is worth in Canadian dollars. So 0.221778. Okay? So is their money, you can get almost 5 of their krones for $1 for 1 Canadian dollar. Okay? Now, all their money can be worth a little bit different, right? You don't know how much what a krone will buy you, right? It may be, so if there is 5 krones per your dollar, right, it may take 20 krones to buy a coffee, which then would be equal to $4 our money, right? So it is not 1 krone for $1 or anything like that. So you have to be careful of that. But a krone is worth pretty much 22 cents in Canada, okay? So then on the other side, when we set up a proportion, it says how many kroners will you receive for $500? And CAD is our Canadian dollar. That's the short version for Canadian dollar. So where am I going to put the $500? Bottom, because that's where Canada is. Okay? So I'm going to cross multiply 1 times 500 divided by that, right? And I'm going to end up with 2254.5 krones.
I'm drinking
Okay.
too much water. Me too.
Boys. Enough. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. And we don't know how much it is to buy things for krones, but it's just to be able to figure out that exchange rate. So now, on the same day, and as in example 1, you decide you're not going to go to Denmark, okay? And you're going to go back to the bank, and you are going to sell it back to the bank. So let's go back to where the krones were. Let's go to Denmark. You notice that we used this value first because the bank was selling to you. You were coming to the bank, you were wanting to buy, they were selling to you. Now you're going back to the bank, we go to the other side, and we go to the bank buying rate because they're taking the money back from you. They're buying it from you. Okay? So now we're going to go over, we're going to set it up exactly the same way, but I'm now going to change 1 krone is now only worth 0.210778. So this is Canadian. That's Denmark. And where am I going to put these 2,254.5 krones? On the top, because that's where, so I go back to my bank with my 2,254.5 krones.
Do you guys forget the decimal?
All right, so when you cross multiply, check your calculator out. Here, let me move it over here. Clear. I have the diagonal that no, 0.210778 times by 2254.5, and then I can divide by 1. 475. Did you divide them, maybe?
Yeah.
That might have been your issue. You had to multiply. So what is that 475 decimal? And I'm going to 2 decimal places this time because it's Canadian money, right? And this is Canadian. So what happened?
We lost.
We did. $500 minus the 475.20. 500 minus the 475.20. The bank took $24.80.
Many monies that I could use.
Right? So that is what the difference, this is where the bank makes money, all right? Besides other things, but they definitely will make money that way. Okay?
Well, they're not making lots of money this way because there's no traveling. Wrong.
That seems wrong, like in what way? Like as in like the bank taking your money?
Yeah.
Stealing.
Yeah.
Like that. That's not fair. Well, they're not making money like this right now because there's no traveling.
Yeah, people, well, no, not as much as they used to. So they're making it off of bank fees and everything like that, you know.
Pay a bank fee.
People pay bank fees. So just remember that it's always one of the foreign money goes on top. There is different ways, but this is the way this is set up in this textbook. One of the foreign money, Canadian cash on the bottom is what it is from the chart, equaling, and then Canadian's always on the bottom, foreign is always on the top. I spelled foreign wrong, look at that. Okay? So this one never changes. It always represents whatever the foreign money is. If it is a euro, a rupee, a krone, a dollar, a peso, a shilling, a yen, any of those, a yuan, a baht, a krona,
Oh.
all those things, those mean one on top.
So
All right, that is 1.5.